My name is Wyatt Pickner. I am Hunkpati Dakota, and I currently work with the Collaborative Research Center for American Indian Health in Sioux Falls in the Methodology Core. And today I have the honor of introducing this next panel, which is titled Research in Tribal Colleges. To provide a little bit of context for this panel, I was just going to read through the abstract here. For many years, research has been a sensitive subject within American Indian communities, and while current efforts are being made to increase research in these populations, tribal colleges and universities, or TCUs, have a unique leadership role in growing and facilitating research. Therefore, it is important to understand how, why, and when research fits into the TCU framework. In order to shed light on this opportunity, the panel will bring together presidents from TCUs in the region to discuss their involvement in research, upcoming research initiatives, and how research fits into their strategic planning. So we have two panelists today, and I will introduce them both, and then they have a short presentation, and then we'll have some time for some questions to talk about how their institution is involved in research. So our first is President Cynthia Lindquist, who has been introduced and provided some opening remarks this morning. I also wanted to mention that Dr. Lindquist currently serves as the chair of the board of directors of the American Indian Higher Education Consortium, an advocacy organization for the 37 tribal colleges and universities. Our second panelist is President Beth Mcdonald, who is president of the United Tribes Technical College located in Bismarck, North Dakota. Macdonald's one-year tenure as president has been marked by a number of noteworthy accomplishments, such as the development of a one-stop shop for student services and establishment of a student union. So help me in welcoming back President Lindquist.
Some of us are a little bit tech illiterate. Even though I'm president of a tribal college, I try to be more sophisticated in the use of technology, but I'm not where I should be. But I do appreciate what we can do with technology. As president of Chandescatusta Community College, and subsequently I've been chair of AIHEC, the American Indian Higher Ed Consortium Board of Directors, for 4 years. I'm always amazed, even here at home, with my employees and my students, how many people don't know about tribal colleges. And so I know many of you do, or most of you know tribal colleges and universities. So what I've done for you this morning is I'm going to give you the big picture perspective of TCUs, tribal colleges and universities in this country, how and why we were formed, but specific to what we're doing in research. I think this is important because as I listened to the questions after your speaker this morning, which was very good, I love dialogue, I love discourse. How else do you do what you're supposed to be doing relative to being a researcher, right? It's to have those questions, to have those anomalies, and to look at that. Why, where are we? There is still a lot of work to be done. I mentioned this morning the issue or the point about collaboration. That is, to me, the juncture where we're at relative to a new era of collaboration and working together. But there's still a lot of misinformation. There's still a lot of fragmentation. There's still a lot of gaps. I've been home to be president of my college for 14 years. And I've come up through the ranks professionally as a former Indian Health Service employee and tribal health employee. So in many ways it's disheartening, because there is still so many things. And it's heart-wrenching, it's frustrating, and yet there is so much beauty, there's so much good going on, even within the discourse, within the dysfunction, within the disparity. There's great resiliency, survivability. Yes, I'm president of a tribal college, but education is the key to everything we're dealing with. Every one of you in here is an educator. Yes, you might be a specialist in some way or another, but we have a responsibility as educators to always keep that at the forefront and understand the dynamics and levels of sophistication of individuals, of groups, institutions, communities, tribes, and we're kind of like all over the place. And as I mentioned in my opening, there's all these pieces and parts, and some of these pieces and parts are phenomenal. It's like, wow. And so for me, and part of what you're all about, or what we're all about as researchers, as educators, is understanding that those dynamics, the role and place of research, the role and place of being an educator, and what our jobs are, both from an Indigenous perspective, from an educational perspective, and then from a research perspective. So first and foremost, it's always coming back to values as Indigenous people, as human beings, and respecting that integrity of those systems and processes that we're trying to create. So, lo and behold, some 45 years ago, there were visionary Native people who established a tribal higher education system. And that's significant to understand. Tribal higher education system. There are 37 tribal colleges and universities in this country right now. We are in 16 states. We have 85 sites. We are all chartered by a tribal government. There are a couple of anomalies, Haskell, Institute of American Indian Arts, and SIPI, Southwest Indian Polytech, which are chartered by the federal government. But they do have Native-controlled boards, although we're still working on the concept of Native-controlled and trying to put those institutions under full tribal or Native-controlled. We are all accredited in the same manner as mainstream institutions and by the same accrediting bodies as mainstream institutions. And I think that's significant and important because sometimes I hear, including my own people, belittle us. What's a tribal college? Oh, that's just that. They're kind of like a high school. They're just that thing over there. And that gets me mad. That's okay. Anger fuels my passion. How do I turn it around? So instead of wanting to slap somebody, let me have a cup of coffee with you. Let's sit down and talk about this. The point is tribal colleges and universities are accredited institutions of higher learning under tribal control. Every one of us has as our core mission the teaching, the learning of our respective culture and languages. And that's important to us because to me it comes back to tribal identity. Directly, degree-seeking students right now, it's about 20,000 students. Indirectly, through our system, the tribal college system, we serve about another 150,000 students, community-based education programs. And we are engaged, we are place-based, we are protecting our sovereignty, our languages, our customs, our place. We estimate we cover 80% of Indian country. We have a lot of up-and-coming institutions, several in Oklahoma, a couple more in Alaska. California's got 3 or 4, including the revitalization of DQ, one of the original 6 tribal colleges. But being vested community members, tribal colleges and universities are really centered on students and student success, student outcomes. Of the 37 tribal colleges and universities, we all do associate degrees and certificate types of programs that are usually community-based, industry-based in that. We have 5 institutions that do master's degrees. And I think it's about 14 or 15 of the tribal colleges now do bachelor's, and many of us are striving, or our vision or goal is to have bachelor's degree programs. Through the AIH system right now, we're working better on trying to collaborate among ourselves relative to the transferring of our students. Chandeska Chisinau Community College is a 2-year degree granting institution. I want masters, I want doctors, I want lawyers, I want researchers, engineers. And so I need my students, want my students to transfer out, preferably to another tribal college, because I know tribal colleges and universities have much greater success because we're rooted in identity. We're beginning to document and demonstrate through research that our students who have that foundation of culture, who they are having much better success academically. We're now being able, through research, to document and to prove this. I mentioned the process of discourse, which is essential to you as researchers. Finding that question that just bugs the heck out of you, and you want to solve it, you want to find the answers and all that. That to me is what research is about. There are many different levels of research, and you guys know all this better, but I'm going to just show you, again, from the bigger national perspective, some of the things happening at tribal colleges and universities. We're very innovative, we're creative. Most of our projects emanate from local issues, sometimes very personal issues. A student comes in with this question, or how come, or why is this happening, or how do I fix it, and that. And we are able to direct our students to solving it, to finding answers, and to doing that in a very institutional, academic manner and way. Our research is directly related to that concept of with community-based participatory research, because we are vested community members. So this slide just shows, again, the differences and distinction of some of the things that we're doing from our perspective within the TCU system. And we really believe and feel that our work relates back to strengthening our communities. And it's just such a wide variety. This slide just shows you some of the different aspects of research and what we're doing. And again, you guys know this all better than I do. Social research, applied research, clinical trials, medical. I mean, it runs the whole gamut of what's happening within the TCU system. Many tribal colleges, I don't have the number, I was trying to get the number, but many tribal colleges have now established IRBs. I don't have an IRB at Chandeska, but I have established through our cooperation with our tribal government an RRB, a Research Review Board. And at some juncture, my goal and hope is that we do establish an IRB. But in working with the tribe, we also have other bigger goals relative to tribal colleges and universities being research centers. And hopefully we're working in a good way with our tribes, our tribal people, our elders, our students, our community, relative to what that agenda is and what it is we're trying to respond to and address. And I think we do this very, very well. But again, this slide just shows you some of the different things that we are doing under these categories of research. Here's some specific colleges and what each of these institutions are doing. Ani Nakota, Blackfeet, Fort Peck, those are Montana institutions. Fond du Lac is over in Wisconsin. And again, you can see it runs the gamut of what we're doing or what we should be doing, could be doing, and are doing in Indian country. Social science. We might have a lot more interest in social science types of research related to language preservation, indigenous knowledge in that. But again, we have a variety of both research projects being conducted, academic programs being developed related to all of these. Social justice, native justice, again, different examples from different colleges. The Think Indian poster there, that's from a campaign from the American Indian College Fund, which is our fundraising organization. And Chandeska Community College actually took that, and you'll see in our materials here at this college, Think Dakota, Live Dakota. And they graciously had no problem with us borrowing this theme that we did about Think Indian. And so we do it here at Spirit Lake and Chandeska College specifically, Think Dakota, Live Dakota. And we try to reinforce that in many ways. Our students are actively engaged in different ways relative to research. And as I've mentioned already, a lot of times our students come in with an idea. I know on West Nile, some of our communities, some of the reservations, particularly here in North Dakota, we had many, many issues or cases, including with our students in that I think kind of jump-started some of these topics as to what we're doing. And again, it's just to show you the variety, the level of sophistication that is happening within the tribal college system. Here's a couple of other ones. I didn't have a slide on here, but College of Menominee Nation over in Wisconsin is world known for its research on sustainable development related to forestry research. And they have international connections relative to that, and they have people from around the world coming to that community to look at what they're doing in sustainable development and managing forestry and the use of that. And to me, again, it's just phenomenal. When I'm able to go out to other tribal colleges and universities and see the caliber of what we're doing, it's just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's global. It has global impact. The American Indian Higher Education Consortia, AHEC, we just met in Minneapolis about less than a month ago. I think it was 3 weeks ago. And we have a committee structure for our work, which is comprised of the presidents of the 37 tribal colleges and universities. One of our committees is the research committee. And the research committee was charged by the presidents to develop a research protocol for AHEC at a national level, and then that we could borrow and use at the local level for each of our institutions. And then we wanted a research agenda. And so this vision and this goal that's up here right now, that's kind of the preamble to the protocol that AHEC, we just implemented. The board just passed this in March, just a couple of weeks ago. So this is hot off the press. But you could go to the AHEC website, and there's a lot more detail relative to the whole point about culturally based research, indigenous-based evaluation framework that have been designed and developed within our institutions, and that we're trying to now nationalize, so to speak, to make sure that we all see and understand this, and then however we take it down within our local institutions and our local communities. And actually, Amy, we had your toolkit, and we presented that. We gave a copy of that toolkit to all the presidents. Because again, we like borrowing. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. And so the CRCAIH toolkit was presented, and so it's part now, another one of your network or collaborators in that. But my point in showing you kind of this bigger picture about AHEC and what we're doing, and copies of the slides have been passed out to you here, is that as you're dabbling, as you're looking at partners and collaborators, look to us in our system. We can help you. We all try to have good relationships with our tribal governments, our tribal leaders in our communities. We know how to work our systems locally. We know how to engage our people. For Chandesca Community College, about 7 years ago, and Dr. Jarvis, this is for your benefit, I have partners at Mount Sinai Medical Center and Columbia University. And for the last 7 summers, 6 summers, we're not going to do it this summer, unfortunately, but we have brought in medical students from Mount Sinai Medical School in their Global Health Initiative. And part of why we brought these students and physicians to Fort Totten, North Dakota, was to have them help us. We created a course on community public health. And so these students taught the course for 3 weeks. Okay? The 4th week of the program was the students in the class, along with the teachers from Columbia and Mount Sinai, were charged with taking care of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, and a Health Careers for You week summer camp for our kids, our youth from this reservation. And what we had them do was they created PSAs, public service announcements, specific to issues on this reservation. And so the teachers in the class taught the course on community public health to get our people to better understand what is community public health and what does that mean when they say we have this high prevalence or incidence of diabetes or suicides, and then what do I do about it? We're trying to make the connection to local people about what it is, the implications, what does research, or how does research help? How does research inform that, and what can I personally do about it? Is there a career path for me in that? And it was very successful. It was very successful. I think in the 6 summers that we did the course, we've trained about 60 Spirit Lake and tribal people about community public health. The youth portion of it on creating PSAs in that summer camp, last summer actually, we had over 50 kids. We had to turn some away because we planned for 30 in that, and then we have them up on the stage where they present their PSAs. Most of them did videos or whatever, and that prepubescent age, they are into drama and theater and drama and whatever, so they created these marvelous videos. Well, then we take those videos that the students, the children created. We have a Good Health TV system in North Dakota, and they're supposed to be being aired on that Good Health TV, but it informs us, me as a president, me as a tribal member, the tribal council. Again, here's what our kids are saying, but then look at what these students in this class did. And then we're trying to track those students. What happened to them? Right now, I know I've got 2 of them over at the University of North Dakota hoping to go into medical school. And so again, so it's connecting the continuum of the education pathway, but then creating the linkages. What's research? Can I do research? What's community public health? What does it mean to me? I know we have all these issues and problems. How do I address it? My point in sharing that, and again, the bigger picture relative to AIHEC, is because tribal colleges and universities, we really get this. We understand the dynamics of our students and what they're dealing with as tribal community members, and then trying to be a full-time college student, let alone even thinking about becoming a biomedical researcher. It's like, me, I can't do that. But when we get the students in the community public health course talking to the youth, we instill in their heads, I want you to be a doctor. I want you to become the next governor. I want you to think about becoming the president of the college or the tribal chairperson. It's instilling the thought that, oh, really, I can do this? And that education is the pathway. And so my point is that the discourse is so good. And we can't beat ourselves up about how fast, how much, and more, and all that. But it is through education. And when you're looking at doing projects, collaborations, and networking and that, please remember the tribal college and university systems. We know what we're doing, and we're very good at what we do. And actually, we like being the director. I like inviting you to my table. Say, here's what we're thinking about. Because we have our own ideas, and not only within those ideas, we know what we need to do relative to remedies, to response, to answers, and that. It's just figuring out and facilitating the processes. And the tribal college and university system is very, very good at doing that. We also don't have the bureaucracy you all do. Sorry, UND, sorry, NDSU, but I've been trying to get professors from those two institutions to come over here in 14 years. And we get it to happen when those professors take leave, because the system is too damn bureaucratic. And there's too many paperwork saying, oh, what, why, and how come they're going to go there for a semester? Oh, no. We can make things happen quicker in our system. We have less bureaucracy in that. At the same time, I still need more help. I don't have the depth of infrastructure. You know, I have great people at my college, as you've met, I'm sure. Every one of them, like most all of you working in the tribal system, you wear at least 5, 6, maybe 10 hats. And we can't keep doing that. That's too much stress. You know, so how do we keep growing our own? Well, here you are. That's what it's all about. So please consider using the tribal college system. 16 states, 80-some campus sites, 37 TCUs and universities, and we'd love your help and we'd love your collaboration with us, and that's what it's all about. So thank you for listening. Dr. Beth Mcdonald, who is a Chandeska Chistana Community College graduate. And actually, he came from UND, and he is a PhD researcher who finally came home, who worked for me as our academic dean for several years. And Dr. Russ also has been blessed in that he was our tribal leader for Spirit Lake Dakota Nation. And then more recently, he took over the leadership of United Tribes Technical College. So we're most proud of Dr. Beth Mcdonald.
Thanks for the good words, Cindy. Mataka Pichante was the Apaches up. Mato Jojo Dakota Makapro. Rosmita was each of Makapro. You know, Wakahoyate Mata. Shake all your hands with a good heart this morning. Welcome you here to Chandeska along with Cindy. I'm really tied up here with Chandeska because I know a lot of the locals here know this already, but I graduated from 8th grade in the gym over there, which is now the HVAC lab. Graduated from high school in there. Graduated with my associates, what's then Little Community College in that gym, back in '93. And then in '96 we got married in there. I didn't get married to Sydney, but got married to my wife there. It was a lot of good memories here. And then working here for, and it took me 4 years to get a 2-year degree, so I was around quite a bit. But I think we see that a lot in tribal colleges, a lot of stop-outs, a lot of perseverance though, and getting our educations done. And I think we're seeing that across the board in all of our colleges. And we see some developmental needs in regard to students when they come back to school, if they've been out for a while. I know myself too is that I went to service for a little bit, and I was always kind of good at math. I graduated valedictorian, and but when I came back, it was gone, you know. And so when I came back to school, I had to take a couple semesters to get back up to speed in math and to get where I needed to be. But I got done with the intermediate algebra here. Then I transferred out to Minot State. And they also do these placement tests when you get to wherever you're going to go to school. And so I did the placement test, and they're trying to put me in Calc 1, out of intermediate algebra here at our tribal colleges. So when we talk about the ability or how well of a job we're doing here at these tribal colleges, at our tribal colleges, then I think that my own personal story hits on that and that experience that I had course, I didn't go into calculus. I said, no, give me college algebra. But I think that's, those are important things for us. Also is that I drove up this morning and kind of fighting the cold here a little bit, so excuse my voice. And then, plus I've been hitting the cold medicine driving, so kind of bear with me, honest. Good to see Spiro, Linda B. Both Spiro from the National Research Center on Native American Aging work, and also Linda B. from Oregon Health Sciences University, and she's one of our faculty there when I was coming through my master's. And so we appreciate the training. Look where it got me, I got to be president. You could hear when Spiro was kind of talking, he's kind of real academic, and kind of start talking like he's from Belcourt again. Belcourt. Then get into my slides here. It's taking me time to tell too many stories. Some of the stuff Cindy already kind of hit on. United Tribes Technical College is a member of AIH, comprised of 37 colleges and universities, more than 85 sites in the United States. TCUs provide access to quality higher education to over 80% of Indian country. All TCUs offer associate degrees, 13 offer baccalaureates, 5 offer master's degree programs. Over half of the federally recognized tribes are presented in TCU enrollments. 2013 and 2014, 75% of graduates earned degrees, 23% earned certificates, 70% of TCU students receive federal financial aid. We're really serving a low-income population. United Tribes was founded in 1969 as an intertribal organization, United Tribes of North Dakota Development Corporation. UTG was the second tribal college established in the nation. The nonprofit corporation started in the state of North Dakota, but the 5 North Dakota tribal nations to include Manahidata Rickraw Nations, Sissilapan Oyate, Spirit Lake Tribe, Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, and Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa tribes. Our 10-member board provides governance and is comprised of the chairperson and 1 delegate from each of those 5 North Dakota tribal nations. United Tribes is accredited to the Higher Learning Commission. So I kind of want to do my commercial slides. If you don't know United Tribes, you know a little bit more now. We have a refined mission statement. United Tribes Technical College provides quality post-secondary education and training to enhance knowledge, diversity, and leadership for all Indigenous nations. It was a little bit longer than that, but we just kind of shortened it, and because we couldn't remember it. So, and I think that's a big part of what we do, right? That we're trying to bring things down that I can remember. And it was actually, I actually had it shorter than that, and our boards wanted a couple more words in there, so it went back up to about 20. But we've been having pretty good support from our board. And of course, our tribal governments have been supportive of education across the board, not only here in North Dakota, but in other places as well. So we appreciate that as tribal colleges and universities. United Tribes, we offer 1 diploma, 3 certificates, 17 associates, and 4. This last one, the 4th one here, is this new one, environmental science and research. And we've been focusing on building research capacity at United Tribes. And there was research being done there, but we wanted kind of push it a little bit more. And I think we did that here at Chandeska. It's continuing to be done at Chandeska. And it's also been, it's happening more so at, not more so, but it's happening at United Tribes as well. And as well as the other tribal colleges here in North Dakota. North Dakota Association of Tribal Colleges, where we've been providing testimony to the state legislature or in regard to the research that's been conducted, just to share a little bit, to educate a little bit in regard to the work that's been being conducted on our reservations and within our urban area of Bismarck. You know, when we talk about this, and we hear this already, but the sovereignty definition, I think, is so important for us to recognize this, and recognition of tribal governments and their authorities for the tribal lands that belong to them. And so we just wanted to, I just wanted to put that up here for us, just to kind of touch on this, especially for our students. And I know all you old guys have been doing research know all this already, but according to the National Congress of American Indians, sovereignty is a legal word for an ordinary concept. The authority is self-governing, Hundreds of treaties along the Supreme Court, the President and Congress have repeatedly affirmed that tribal nations retain their inherent powers of self-government. These treaties, executive orders, and laws have created a fundamental contract between the tribes and the United States. So if you want to read a little bit more than that, there's more than that, you can visit the website. Individual perception of sovereignty in contemporary times is based on land and ability to govern within the lands we occupy. And I had this story on here. We had some land here on the reservation that was fee land, so we paid taxes on it. We just sold it, because we moved to Bismarck now. But, within that land, in that little bit of 30 acres there, is there anything that was done within that land? They had to come and ask me and my wife. And that's sovereignty. That we govern what's happening within that land. And we expand that a little bit in regard to the reservation level, in regard to tribal nation level for our peoples. But in that same concept there, that we all own individually for the lands that we own, or the house that we own, or that piece, is that we have a full authority over that. So the concept shouldn't be too hard for us to expand to our tribal nations. And our tribal leaders, I think, really have to stress this more and more as we go forward, especially as research has been conducted. So we think about these things today, and we think about those things in the future for our future generations. As you know, most tribal nations have some land buyback over buying land that was really given to us through treaty, and then especially here for Spirit Lake sold over at Minot for 5 cents an acre. And so now we have a checkerboard land base here on Spirit Lake reservation. So these are, I think, important concepts in support of tribal nations work. That cold medicine's drying me out, sorry. Community-based research, we're already hearing this morning, you guys already know this. But according to Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, 4 issues should be considered by researchers when conducting community research. Interaction with the community as partners, not just subjects. We need to be working with that community. We can't just come in there and roll in there and say we're going to do that, do this and that. And sometimes it works, but for the most part, don't go in there with your own research agenda and not serve the tribal community that you're working with. Use of community knowledge to understand issues and develop interventions. I think that's so important. I've seen, there's Anita Fredericks is having some old publications from when we were working with NDSU while I was here at Chandesca, and some of that stuff in regard to tribal liaison, and using tribal liaison within these communities that you're working with in order to help you out. And that should be somebody of integrity, somebody that's ethical, in order so they're not just doing it to gather a paycheck, but they're really there to protect the sovereignty of that nation that you're researching. Community involvement in the design and outcomes. Go back to the community, recognize that community expertise. They're going to tell you how to get it done. They're going to tell you how things are going to happen there. It's there, that you just got to pull it out of there and interact with them. Those two together, I think, along with the tribal liaison and that third bullet, I think are really important. Immediate benefits from results to participate in communities. I think there's a variety of benefits that sometimes we don't always recognize, but any of the grants that we wrote, we made sure that a stipend was given to those that filled out our surveys. We're asking for their expertise in regard to filling it out, so give them something. It's a cultural value, it's a cultural way. And people outside of our areas may not know our culture, so we need to help them in that respect. Give them something for participating in our focus group, feed them. So these are things that are just natural to us culturally, and we need to do that in regard to the research that we're doing. Or if we're doing service, the same thing holds true. So these are things that I think that we all going up here on the reservation, but sometimes visitors that come to help us or be with us and work with us, and they don't always know that, so we need to educate them. So we had a little meeting last night, and there's some evaluators that are helping on the CRCAIH work, and very knowledgeable in Indigenous evaluation. And so it's refreshing to see that, because we've had several projects, not only here, but other places, where we've had to educate non-native and native researchers about tribal research protocols. And that's very time-consuming to do that. And if you're having expertise coming to us to help us, then pull in that expertise, and that's going to have some sound advice for those research projects. So these are very important ideas to have successful research that's beneficial to the community. And I remember I can't remember who said it this morning, but you know, I think for all the upcoming research, all the Native researchers, that if you want to look at Indian country, come from the perspective of the tribes. Always come from the protection of sovereignty, and then from the tribal nation side, and it won't go wrong. If you come from this other perspective, or we're doing helicopter research, as we were saying earlier, and then or we're trying to do benefit and build our publications like a lot of university faculty do, and I think we're coming from the wrong reasons for that. So a lot of good ideas I'll share today. So thank you for those previous presenters. I think I'm just trying to. I think we're all kind of hitting on the same note here. Native focused research should ensure tribes retain ownership of the data. Nobody's arguing that. Data analysis, publication, and or presentation must be approved by tribal councils. Data archives in chronological order assist in tracking research that could assist in better research being conducted. Trend analysis, if there's research being conducted, sometimes it's good if it was good research initially, it's probably still good research yet. Let's just duplicate that and see what any changes have occurred and document that and see if it can help us to move forward. Research benefits to the tribe, compensation to participants. Tribal research capacity is developed and enhanced. So when we sit down and we teach people how to do surveys, we're building capacity for that community. When we're having people do data entry for us. We're building capacity for that community. We're building capacity for that future researcher. And these entry-level pieces. So I think a lot of you out there, myself included, are going out there and doing survey research. You know, so we're out there and knocking on doors. And shared this before too, but I worked for Gallup. Gallup did an alcohol and drug survey here in North Dakota, and I was working on that. And so our incentives was hams. And so then we needed 300 surveys so we could have 300 hams laying around. But so we had these hams and stuff, and so we took coolers and go knock on doors. And so, you know, so over here someplace, and they said, hey, Beth Mcdonald, I'm here to do an alcohol and drug survey. See if you can help me out. Oh, well, I don't know you. It's an old guy, old timer. I said, he said, who's your folks? I said, Tony and Vine and Macdonald. Oh, well, I don't know them either. He said, well, who's your grandparents? I said, Mike and Evelyn Macdonald. Oh, well, I remember Mike, come on in. And so invited me in, and there was a young girl sitting on a couch over there, and says, feed this guy. And it's in the morning, about 9 o'clock and stuff, and I said, no, hey, that's all right, I just got that in, and sit down. This old guy's got back to you like that. So I sit down, and then the young girl comes over there, and gives me a plate of coffee and stuff. And so, and then we sit there and visit, and he was a World War II veteran, my grandpa was a World War II veteran. And so then we start talking about my grandpa, and then they used to have cattle and horses and stuff, and we talked about that. And so about 3 hours later, we do the survey. It takes about 5 minutes. Give him his hand, I head out. You know, so, but you wonder why I come kind of a big guy. That's why. It's Chepa, because he was doing a lot of surveys. So, but the thing is that, and that's part of our culture. When somebody honors you by inviting you into their home and is going to feed you, you don't say no. And so these are concepts I think that are important for us as culture, as Native peoples in regard to that work that we're doing. So, reports are provided to tribal council and our research contact persons, our team for dissemination and cataloging. I think there should be an archiving piece going on within the reservation in regard to whatever studies have been done, in regard to the papers that have been published, in regard to the presentations that have been given on behalf of the tribe. And that needs to happen within our nations. Graduate students may also wish to utilize data to complete their thesis and dissertation requirements. We heard about the importance of primary, but there's also benefits to secondary, that data is relatively new. So just some ideas in regard to the benefits of that. UND, we have United Tribes, we have an institutional review board. Initiated in 2003, registered with the United States Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Human Research Protections. Partnerships, we worked closely with USDA, Grand Forks Human Nutrition Research Center, up at the United Tribes, but also here. We have several projects with them, and And North Dakota Association of Tribal Colleges, I think is so important for us here in our state, and really is heralded out there as important as other states with many tribal colleges are kind of looking at our model here. And I think that's important, so important, because we're visiting almost on a monthly, bi-monthly basis to share what's going on with our communities in regard to our colleges, in regard to the work that's being done. And that is not just the research piece, but it's kind of overall. And I think that's really been good for me. And that's Cindy and Dr. Jim Davis, Dr. Lauren Vermillion have really provided a lot of mentorship to me as a new president, and also for Twilight, I believe, in regard to her, because we've been a president about the same amount of time over at we went to head out to Saunish College. Ongoing activities, monthly meeting dates and committee membership, and we really partnered up with the Association of Tribal Colleges and grabbing researchers from other colleges to come and help us on our IRB. So that works pretty well. We periodically request project investigator PIs to share annual updates, poster sessions, data results, final results back with our IRB to help us to just make sure we know what's going on with those research projects that we've approved. A lot of stuff to operate reservation. We serve tribes. We're off reservation. That's our campus over there. A little bit of building going on. We serve tribes from across the region. I think for this semester we have 37 tribal nations represented within our student body. Many students committed to serving their community and protecting natural resources. And you hear that a lot, I think, among those that are going out to higher education, is that, what are you going to do when you get done? I'm going to go home. I want to go home and help out at home. And I think this is not just a native dynamic, but I think it's a rural dynamic, in that I've heard it, because in guest lecturing at UND, in those classrooms, I heard it from the rural students, and they, well, why are you going into physical therapy? Because we don't have a physical therapist back in Washburn, North Dakota. You know, so, I think the thing is that we have to look for those similarities between our native cultures and those other cultures. Because I think there has to be a line there where we start bringing this stuff together. And it's not really realistic either for us to think that we're just going to start doing all the research as natives ourselves. But we have to recognize the contribution of our non-native relatives in regard to that work, and how we pull ahead in that. Because somebody, non-native researcher, took the time to help train me, or several. And so, and I think that now we want to change that, like, pay that forward and pass that on to our up-and-coming young native researchers. But it's all of our roles in order to build this capacity for us. And not only at tribal colleges, but also in the university settings. And so, and us just individually, hiring those folks that can help us, and we see promise, and then to push that ahead. And the more we can develop that, the more we can share that knowledge that we have, the more we're going to be able to serve as overall. Diverse core of researchers and educators in the science and agricultural fields. A lot of what we're doing is, United Tribes kind of focused on that ecology, science and agricultural ecology. Developing a research culture with clear goals and expectations. Cindy talked about a research agenda. I think that's important for all of us. I only have about 50 more slides left. I want to say sorry about the snow too. I drove up from Bismarck this morning. It was snowing over there when I left. But last night I washed my car, and it's like it had to happen. So, there we go. Mostly hits. We also got the land grant monies, the land grant research estimate. What we've been focusing on, first of all, the endowment funds from USDA. We shared out that there's 37 tribal colleges. We got land grant designation, but we didn't get any land, so we get a little bit of money every year for that. But also on the research part, the USDA money's been focused on a lot of agricultural pieces. So there was some buffalo research that was conducted, berries, native plants, maize, seed saving, and then some life skills piece that we are to focus on our students. And for the future, we're looking at self-perceived health status and food consumption patterns of students at tribal colleges. Here's some of the studies that were done, and I don't want to read all those because I probably butcher some of those words anyway. But but these are all student research projects. And so, and there's either one or two different students conducting each of this work. And they've been doing poster presentations. And yesterday we had a visit from National Science Foundation for just a site visit for the teacup. Hopefully we'll get funding here. But as we talked about the research that's been conducted at United Tribes for a 2-year degree and environment, is that what we're seeing is that we're doing work that's really at the graduate level for a 2-year degree. And I think that just, and it's not just us that's seeing that. So, other projects, urban coyote study, bat conservation, invasive bluegrass. Almost all those old 100-year-old buildings over at Tribes, they all got bats in them. So so it's a prime research grounds for us. And then there's there was flooding that happened over from the Missouri, and then that pushed all those coyotes up towards campus. So there's a bunch of coyotes around here too. So we captured some and put some collars on them, and so now we got research projects. But they're always every once in a while somebody, because there's a bounty on them, so every once in a while somebody will bump one off and bring our collar back. Behavioral health research, kind of the only thing that we got going on in regard to human subjects research. Dr. Gillis, she's doing a student alcohol and drug survey, brief alcohol screening inventory for college students, and then we're including both the MP study and the basic study as the Tribes. And she's been handling that coordination with that on our campus. That's with the UW. Benefits to students. Advanced training in high technology, opportunities to communicate, hands-on, preparation for grad school, making a difference. I just wanted to fly through this here pretty quick because I see my man's giving me some time here. Research assistance, differing viewpoints, culture education, and I think all those are important for us because it's not just the social piece of our culture, but in regard to our relationship with our land, the relationship with our water. And what we're seeing is a lot of our graduates are going on and getting positions at home because we have EPA monies for most of the tribes for air quality, water quality, soil sampling, and those types of things. So, future, of course, we want to sustain our work, educational research on student learning. We're pulling together a database that we think create an institutional assessment office on our campus and strengthening that and directing resources to that to make sure that's happening. To see what the impact is on perhaps from funding streams that we get or other variables that might determine success or not of our students. So there's our 5 governing tribes there. I think I'm going to quit. So thank you very much.
Thank you again to Presidents Lindquist and Macdonald for providing information on how research has been involved in their institutions or at their institutions. I have just a couple questions, and then we'll see if anyone from the audience has any last-minute questions here. So the first question that I have is, can you talk about any barriers that you've encountered with research? Specifically, any that you were able to overcome, and any successes along the way?
Probably, I think you've all talked about it already, indirectly or directly to a certain extent, but it's lack of resources. You know, and so not just money, although I like show me the money, but it's having enough professional people who really understand, what is research, what is it you're trying to do, and then it's the depth of infrastructure to carry it out. And I've got several good people at my college right now. Dr. Brent Halls, who is leading our research conference tomorrow. So if we didn't have him as our lead faculty member, or Carrie Ann DeFala, who's my land grant director on the other side, and they have normal jobs, including teaching, but then, why don't you do this too? Or why don't we do that? Or here, we want to create this research agenda for Chandeska for Spirit Lake community. And so, again, it's depth of infrastructure. And so part of my passion is, again, we've got to keep getting more through the pipeline, professional development, that education pathway. The other aspect, as a vested tribal member, both personally and for my college, it's finding the time to interact with the tribal leaders and helping the tribal leaders understand research. And what is the tribal leader's role? Personally, I don't want them doing research. I want them to act as elected officials, which is policy, legislation, resource development. But I want them, as our elected leaders, to help designate the appropriate role. So creating an IRB or RRB or making that designation, if it's tribal health, Indian Health Service, whoever, whatever, but helping them understand that's their responsibility. Help us figure it out as tribal members, tribal programs and that, but who should be taking the lead in that? And that can be complicated. Like politics, right? Administration changes every year, every other year. You have new leaders, and so it's constant changing, re-educating. Okay, here we were. I'm sorry, but so we make 2-3 steps ahead, and our next administration we're take 5 backwards. But if you see and understand and know that, you can manage it. It's like, okay, so that's how it is. But trying to better educate everybody involved at all the different levels, and that takes a lot of work and effort.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we're kind of experiencing the same issues as Mark, is that, with our faculty, with our teachers, is that, and just personnel in general, is that oil boom, even though that's, all the oil prices kind of tanked and stuff, but still, salaries are still high up there in regard to competition, so a lot of our workers pulled out and headed uptown, and so, in regard to opportunities there to make more money. And so the competitive salaries, I think, is so important for us. And having trained folks in order to do this work is the other piece of this. And I think the model, I think that I kind of like to see as we continue investing in our workforce and helping them to obtain their next credential up the ladder to, because that's going to help us to obtain more resources. That's one of our, when we apply for grants, that's going to be one of the ones that's going to determine whether or not sometimes we're not going to get those funds. So I think, and then once we get them, support them in regard to building their resumes, and hopefully they're not going to take off, but instead they're going to become loyal to us and stay with us throughout their careers. And I think that's how long we got to think out in regard to long term, is that invest in folks with the ideal that they're going to stay with us throughout that whole time. The other part in regard to policy is that Cindy was sharing, I was the chairman here for a little bit, and that and we provided testimony several times over that time to up in Washington in order to get additional resources to address our needs here. And so the data the reports that were being written from that information, the data that was collected here at Spirit Lake was so important. Because you could use that information in regard to testimony to go testify that the federal government was not fulfilling their trust responsibility to our people. And so this really falls back on our treaties in regard to that, and we actually have information that is using their standards for presenting that information and having accurate factual data. And so So we say, here you go, and these become weapons for us, I think, or weapons for our leaders to take that forward and really demand that we have those resources necessary to make our communities safe and to provide those resources, those services that were promised to us by treaty.
Thank you both for those responses. I think in the interest of time, we won't be able to have any additional questions, but I would encourage everyone to reach out to our panelists if you do have questions, because this is a very important topic, and trying to get Native researchers out in the field to help with, doing all of this work, because there's a lot to be done. And I think President Lindquist, in your statement earlier this morning about having the Native researchers actually doing the research is a very key component, especially on these type of topics. So thank you. Help me thank our panelists again for participation.